Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and there's still so many unanswered questions regarding the Gabby Petito case. Why are the Laundries still silent? What did they know? How do we get justice for Gabby and Gabby's family? There's always still the questions I know many of us are still asking. Well, today we got some answers. I don't know if it's going to be the answers you want or it's going to satisfy anybody out there, but we've been waiting for a long time from Moab Police in Utah, the officers who pulled over Brian and Gabby back in August. This was the last time we'd really sort of seen them interacting, and there were a couple other instances, but this was a body cam footage that was just dissected by all. And a lot of us, it really, I think, made the case go even more viral because we got to see inside this relationship. And it was very clear as we began to watch that footage and really look into it, how troubling this relationship was. And the main questions that came about is, did those officers actually make mistakes? Could they have done something differently? And the big question that is now actually answered in this report, sort of, they attempt to, is could this have changed things? Could they have saved Gabby? Well, ultimately, I can't give you a report on the whole report just yet because it's a 100-plus page report. I'm currently going through it with my team. We're going to give you a full breakdown of everything once we've had a chance to read it all. But I wanted to give you sort of the top line summary of things so you guys know that this is out there and what's happening. And yes, they did acknowledge that the Moab police made unintentional mistakes in the incident. Now, there's so much more that's told in this, and I have the whole document. It's 102 pages. I've begun to go through them about, 20 pages through or so. I've gotten enough of a gist to at least give you what I think is their summary, but there's a lot of stuff I'm realizing has been revealed or at least confirmed in this report that I think is worth its own sort of breakdown. So please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We'll be covering this in more depth later as well. So hit that bell for alerts, smash the like button, and leave a comment down below to help get the word out. Just because you can get, I want you guys to get the whole report without having everyone have to read it. It's a big read, and it's a tough read. But overall, the summary sort of does really sum up their take on things. And so it breaks everything down, all the evidence that came in, and reveals a lot. But they did find out that the officers who responded to the incident made several unintentional mistakes that stemmed from the fact that the officers failed to cite Miss Petito for DV. The city acknowledges that this finding may raise questions, and the issue is examined extensively in this investigative report. The report recommends improvements to both policies and the training of the Moab City Police Department. These recommendations include providing additional training in DV investigation, as well as additional legal training to ensure officers understand state laws and statutes, conducting an overall policy review, conducting a software review, and strengthening the review process for incident reports. The investigative report also finds that a statement was never obtained from the original 911 caller and recommends that be done to make the incident report more complete. The city intends to implement the report's recommendations. Based on the report's findings, the City of Moab believes our officers showed kindness, respect, and empathy in their handling of this incident. As the Moab City Police Department continues its daily mission to serve our community, efforts are underway to provide additional resources and tools to assist in addressing DV incidents. Plans are in place to add trained DV specialists to oversee incidents investigated by Moab officers. We also have implemented and added an ongoing training and testing to ensure that the officers understand our policies and procedures. City of Moab sends our sincere condolences to the Petito family. Our heart goes out to them as they continue to deal with the tragic loss of their daughter. Now, right out the gate, you're going to just be like, wait, what? So they should have arrested Gabby, is what they're saying? Yes. They go through, and based on the evidence, based on what they were given, and based on what she told them, yes, they say they should have done that. Now, that's why I wanted more time to digest all of this, because I'm sort of just like, huh? The reporter himself makes a point. This is all done by Captain Brandon Ratcliffe, he's an outside investigator. And as he does sort of his introduction here, he explains some stuff, and we'll go through this in more depth when I break down the full report for you. But just to give you a little bit more in this rundown, there were those two officers that we saw on the video. The one who's like the first one we saw, he was a new officer. And I always assume that, but this confirms the fact that, yeah, he was hired in May of 2021, had no prior law experience. He was on the final phase of his field training. And the other officer who was there sort of stepped in and sort of took over. That was his field training officer, Officer Robbins. So we have Officer Robbins, who has had 16 years in the force, and Officer Pratt was the other one. Officer Pratt had 16 years in the force. Officer Robbins was the new one who sort of drove him to the hotel. And there were moments in the video where you could tell Pratt was like trying to get Robbins to make the call, just because you could tell he was clearly training the guy. And that's important to know. Like, he was still in training. Did he know it all? Maybe not. Do we have to fault him more because of it? I mean, yeah, some of you are. This officer, this one is from. I'm gonna make sure I am quoting that this is Pratt. Is this Pratt who talked? Yeah, this is Pratt. Both officers are just complete wrecks, is the reality. But who's the one who said this quote was crazy to me? I thought it was. I'm trying to remember which one. I want to make sure we're reporting the right one. Both officers have made it very clear that they're living in just misery right now. They can't stand. They would have done anything differently, obviously, had they known it was going to go where it was going to go. And it was Pratt. So Pratt is the old one, the more experienced officer. So I'm making sure. Yes. So Pratt's the one who shows up later, and Pratt now has made it clear. I'm desperately effed over that she got. I'm really am. I would have done anything to stop it if I would have known that was coming, was what he was quoted as saying in his interview. He said during his interview, the report, he didn't identify any red flags that was going to happen. If I would have known he was going to do that, I would have taken vacation to follow them because I care about people. I would have intervened and citizens arrested him in Wyoming. I would have taken my own time. I would have missed my family to go do that. So while the report says that both officers did make unintentional mistakes, they both believed at the time they were making the right decision based on the totality of the circumstances that were presented. There were mistakes made in this case. How it was handled how this case was handled. If this case was handled flawlessly, would it have changed anything? Nobody knows, the report says. Pratt also said he accepted responsibility for anything he did wrong, but didn't want anyone to think that I did not care. I do want anyone involved to know that I talked to Gabby and I treated Gabby as much as like I could, fatherly, the way I'd want a cop to interact with my daughter, even if he got it wrong. I do care. I'm devastated about it. I cared that day and I still care. He said, I don't think the public gets that I don't know if they know we care. I don't know if they know. So look, this is a tough one because there's a lot as you go through. And as the officer even admits here, he got to have months on this case. Same luxury was not afforded to the grand majority of investigations. The officers had 75 minutes while I've had an unlimited amount of time. While I've had the reports and recordings, I will not pretend to know that I have the same perception the officers had while investigating the case. There are many what-ifs that have presented itself as part of this investigation. The primary one, would Gabby be alive today if this case was handled differently? That is an impossible question to answer, despite it being the answer many people want to know. Nobody knows, and nobody will ever know the answer to that question. My job is to provide information to the details of this investigation and if it was handled appropriately. So, look, this is going to be a divisive read because they're basically saying, yeah, we stand by the officers, but they made some mistakes. They say they're going to put new training and things in. And I think there was mention in one of the reports I have, because it's a huge chunk, and I'm sorry, I want to be honest that I haven't had a chance to finish it yet. But there's enough here to sort of get the gist for you of what they're trying to get to the public. But I want to make sure we take some time here. But I think there was a moment that they do, they recommended they take some leave, but not much more punishment on these officers. And I wonder what you guys think, because it does feel like, to me, from my experience in rereading some of the evidence here, it does still feel like to me they put their own personal bias in, their own sort of experience with their own wives and their crazy wives and everything else, and parlayed that over into this situation and projected it there and missed a lot of cues. Now, they weren't trained for that, though. So whose fault really is that? I always felt like these officers were trying. I never felt like they were intentionally trying to do something wrong. I really don't. I think they were trying to go above and beyond to try to avoid her doing that because they sensed this was just something else. And in my first watch, without knowing everything else, I wonder how many of us would have still felt that way had we not known the severity of the situation later. You know what I mean? I do think we have to be a little bit more careful and have a little bit more empathy there of how did they know this was going to become that? This was such a... Who would have ever predicted that this guy, Brian, was who he was? So lessons learned in Justice for Gabby, lessons learned where I hope this incident will really wake up a lot of officers to be more careful and to follow the protocols even more and to step up these divisions, these cops and these departments to put in better experts in place and make sure that the officers are aware. There's a lot we can learn here, and so we will break down the full coverage soon. Sorry, apologies. I'm still a little under the weather, but thank you for bearing through. Overall, that is the summary. Yes, unintentional mistakes were made, but ultimately, they would have taken Gabby in. That's what they would have done based on what they said. The report is vast, as I tried to tell you here. It is a lot of data, a lot of stuff to go through, and we've just gotten started. We are going to go through it for you. We're going to get through it and make sure we get back to you on some of this. The interviews are in there, a lot of stuff. So stay tuned. We will try to get you a full breakdown of that, but it was just not something we could do in the initial morning day. But I wanted to make sure you guys got this news out that the results are in, and that's the overall results. As for more information that comes from this report and what we learned, there were a few other things I noticed about the Brian Laundrie's phone and other interesting tidbits that definitely came out of this report that I will break down in another video, which I'll put at the end of this video when it's there. So it's not going to be there right now, but it may be there now, depending on when you watch this video. So thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet.